Right, bunch of people, this is Twilight calling again. Hold on. I know the plan what I'm going to say before I say it. No one gave me any ideas from my Twilight Thoughts on series, so I just thought, screw it, I'm going to pick a topic myself and talk about it. So yeah, and the topic I picked, as you probably know already, because I'm going to put it in the title after I finish uploading this, is Dragon Ball. Yes, I call it Dragon Ball, but it's encompassing Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball GT. The manga is consistently called Dragon Ball throughout the whole thing. It's only the anime that got the varying titles. So I'm going to say what I think about the series, maybe share a few interesting facts that you probably already knew, and I'll talk about the movie, the Dragon Ball Evolution, as well. So let's get started. So Dragon Ball was probably one of the first anime series I ever watched, even back before I knew what anime was. And I remember as a kid I watched it and I was interested because at the time I was watching shows where the good guys always won. Basically you would have a fight and sometimes it looked like they were going to lose, but then they would come back and win. But in Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball Z as it was called back then, didn't happen. At least it didn't happen all the time. Sometimes the good guys lost. Some, like Ginyu Force, beat up the villain and everyone. I forget who was involved in that fight. It's been a while. But that kind of appealed to me as a youngster. I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is a show where you actually don't know who's going to win, and that got me hooked. So I watched it a lot, and it kind of I didn't know at the time it was from Japan. I thought it was made in America. Like I thought every single cartoon in existence was made in America at that time. I had no concept of anime or whatever. I'd never heard of it until a few years later, and I discovered it on the internet. So I was pretty interested, and I think it is a good show. I do think they use a lot of copy pasting. It's a lot of reused footage particularly in the fight scenes. But it is fun to watch. The plot can be a little hard to understand sometimes, but isn't that the case for all anime? So yeah, summa summarum, it's good. I would say if you have to watch things in Japanese, or anime in Japanese, like I do, because I'm an insane person, you might find Goku's voice a little hard to get used to at first, because yes, he is voiced by a woman, and yes, it does sound like that. The thing about that is that he has the same voice actor, or actress I should say, as he did when he was a child in the Dragon Ball anime, and they didn't really bother changing the voice actress because she had been with the character for so long, I guess, and they also didn't change the voice, so he basically has a child's voice even in his adult form in Japanese. But once it actually, you might think I'm crazy for saying this, but it actually, phone's ringing, ignore that. You might think I'm crazy for saying this, but it actually does fit him in some way. Goku is supposed to be childlike and innocent, and he basically has a child's level of intelligence as well, more or less. He's never had a proper education, and he grew up on his own in the wilderness, raised by an old man who died shortly after him, I think, or something like that. I'm fuzzy on the details of Dragon Ball story, but the point is, Goku is basically like a child in an adult's body. So I think having a child's voice actually does fit him in a way. Alright, what else can I say? Okay. Everybody knows this, but I'm just going to put it out there anyway. The infamous line, "It's over 9,000," that Vegeta says is actually changed from the original Japanese. In the original Japanese he says it's over 8,000. It's probably the fact that it was changed to more fit the mouth movements in the English. The sound's going out. It's back. Here, but in the remastered English dub on the DVDs, he does it, and it's actually changed back to it's over 8,000. So it's kind of interesting. There's also a couple translation errors or just things that have changed from the Japanese version to the English version. One of which is Vegeta saying that Goku's father was a scientist and it was him who developed the artificial moon that would allow science to transform into the Ozai, the Great Aid. That is wrong. That is completely wrong. Goku's father was not a scientist, he was a warrior, and he didn't develop the artificial moon. I can't remember who did exactly, or what Vegeta says in the original Japanese version of that scene, but it's nothing to do with Bardock. Nothing whatsoever. Let's see, also, Goku explaining instant transmission, which has a different name in Japanese, but I can't remember it now, and I don't want to look it up. So, he says that you move, like, you turn into light, and move to another place at the speed of light. Again, that's wrong. It's instant, like that, you're there. So, even moving at the speed of light would imply a delay of a few nanoseconds. But in the Japanese version, it's explicitly said that instant transmission is instant. It's not, you don't turn into light or anything, it's just like you disappear in one place and you appear in another. Which wouldn't make much difference if you were only using it to travel small distances, but they frequently use it to travel intragalactic or even intergalactic distances in the anime, which would make a difference if you were travelling at the speed of light versus actually instantly moving to one place. That is a point that needs to be made. Okay, what else can I talk about? Let's talk about Dragon Ball Evolution. Let's talk about the movie. I know everybody hates the movie, and I gotta say I watched it and I wasn't that impressed. I mean, the one thing that really annoyed me though was that they called the key attacks airbending. I mean, are they trying to piss off the Avatar, the Last Airbender fans? What is the deal with that? I can't think of any reason why they would actually do that when you can just as easily say key attacks, which is what they're called in the series, and would be better because it's what they're called in the series. Just add key is fairly easy to pronounce as far as Japanese words go. You can add a couple of lines explaining what it is. It's the life energy of all living things, blah blah blah. Why would you say airbending? What is the deal? I don't even get why. Seriously. That is not Avatar, the Last Airbender, guys. It's Dragon Ball Z. Don't mix up these two franchises because you're going to piss off a lot of people if you do that. Okay, so yeah. So the movie doesn't really follow the original story that well, but to be honest, I'm not too pissed off about that because movies have all alternate adaptations and they are their own. Sorry. They are their own stories, and they shouldn't be expected to copy the original source material because it's a separate work. I mean, if you look at The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is, by the way, one of my favourite book series ever, the radio series, the book, the first movie, and the second movie are all different retellings of more or less the same story, but they have differences in them as well. And the Dragon Ball Evolution movie, it's its own story. It borrows from the source material, but it doesn't copy wholesale from it. And that's what most adaptations do. And it's not a bad thing at all to do that. It's just a bad thing to use the wrong terms for things and copy them from other series. And it's a good thing that they had James Masters playing Piccolo because he was apparently a huge fan of Dragon Ball and he actually advised them on some of the stuff they did in the movie, I believe. Alright, let me see what else now. Let's talk about the characters' names. We all know by now, or at least you should know by now, that most of the characters' names are puns on various different types of vegetables. The Saya, or Seitan, if you go by the English pronunciation, is an anagram of the Japanese word yasai, which means vegetable. So that's why the Saiyans are all named after vegetables, or Saiyajin, as they say in Japanese, are all named after vegetables. Kakarot, the Kakaroto, from carrot, basically karoto, and then you put the next bit ka in front of it, so it becomes kakaroto. And they all take the names of the vegetables from English instead of Japanese for some reason, because Japanese just like English, I guess. Goku actually comes incidentally from Sun Wukong, the main character of the Chinese epic Journey to the West. Son Goku is the Japanese reading of that Chinese name. The translation was something roughly like Great Monkey King of the Sky, which kind of fits Goku. I'll talk about that later, but basically Dragon Ball was initially created as basically a retelling of Journey to the West, until it got all the flashy stuff with Dragon Ball Z. But let's talk about the characters' names. Vegeta obviously comes from vegetable, Vegeta Bull. Nappa is from Napa cabbage, I think. It's a type of dish with cabbage in it, or something like it's something to do with cabbage. I remember that much anyway. Krillin is actually a portmanteau. It comes from Kuri, which is the Japanese for Japanese chestnut, and Lin is taken, or Lin as it should be, is taken from Shaolin, as in Shaolin monk, which is basically what he is. So it's Kuri Lin is the proper spelling, but they change it to Krillin in the English dub for ease of pronunciation, I guess. Bulma is from bloomers, or Boomer. This again, the misspelling was actually creator Akira Toriyama's fault. He had her in her first appearance in the manga wearing a t-shirt with Bulma, B-U-L-M-A, printed across it in big letters. So even though it was supposed to be, her name was supposed to be Bloomer, he spelled it as Bulma, and then that spelling stuck. But in the UK dubs of the movie, she is called Bloomer. And by the way, those UK dubs are awful, don't watch them seriously. I'll talk about them later. Let's talk about the characters' names. Yamcha is from Yamcha, which is a Cantonese phrase meaning tea drinking. Basically, it's like a little ceremony they have in China. And his partner Puar is actual type of Chinese tea. Chaozu, or Jiaozi, is the name of a sort of spirit or ghost in Chinese folklore. Who else is there? Piccolo, obviously Piccolo, the musical instrument. It's not cut from pickles. Some people seem to think it's from piccolo, like the instrument, because there's also a tambourine, cymbal, piano, and the others who show up in the first series. Frieza from Frieza, obviously, and Cooler. Ginyu Force, let's talk about those, because those are very interesting names. Rikun was, unfortunately, a pun that was kind of hard to translate from Japanese to English, because it's taken from the word cream, which is kurimu in Japanese spelling, and then they swapped the first two kana around, so kurimu became rikuru. Unfortunately, there's no real way of doing that in English spelling and keeping the pun, so they just had them called rikun. Ginyu comes from gunyu, which is the Japanese word for milk. Jis is from cheese, obviously chizu, and they changed the ch to a j, so it became Jis. Bata is from butter with the vowels swapped around, so bata in Japanese becomes bata. Again, it's kind of hard to do in English while keeping the pun. And Guldo is from yogurt with the C replaced by a D, so Yoguto became Gurudo. And there you have it. Chi-Chi has a very interesting name actually, because it's kind of sexual in a way. Chi-Chi it basically means milk, but it's also a slang, like, quote unquote baby talk word for breasts in Japanese. So basically you're going around with a character in this anime who is called Boobs or Boobies or something like that, which probably got a lot of laughs out of the Japanese audience. Let's see, who else is there? Trunks, obviously. Trunks, like the underwear. All that family seems to be named after underwear. It's Dr. Briefs, Trunks, Bra, who was changed to Bulla in the English dub, because you don't want a character named Bra in a show for children, I guess. Pan is from Greek mythology. Pan, the Greek god of forest or whatever he was, evidently. And it's also the word for bread in Japan, taken from the Portuguese pão, meaning bread. So there's a double meaning, and both meanings actually fit the character. Videl is an anagram of devil, fitting because her father is Mr. Satan, who was renamed to Hercule in the French dub, which then moved on to the English dub as Hercule. Hercule is the French for Hercules. The reason they did that is because they already had a character called Satan, because they renamed Piccolo to Satan in the French dub. So when the character showed up who actually was called Satan, they had to change his name, and they picked Hercule, and that moved on to the English dub. So that's why Mr. Satan got his name changed. It probably also has something to do with the fact that they didn't want the character called Satan in the English dub. But shall we move on? The Ox King, whose name is Yu Mao in Japanese, who is actually a character from Journey to the West, and is named in something like Demon King of the Oxen. Kami is Japanese for God. Popo, I don't even know where that comes from. Interestingly enough, Popo was changed to Momo in the French dub, because Popo means something mildly rude in French. Let's see, I know there's more characters. Gohan and Goten, I don't. Gohan means rice in Japanese, and it's also a Japanese word for a cooked meal of any sort. Goten, I'm not sure if that means anything. Nail, who is the Namekian that Piccolo fuses with, if you remember, during the Namek Saga, his name is actually a word in its own right, but it actually comes from snail, with the S taken off, and cargo, similarly from escargot, the French word for snail. Dende is from Denden Mushi, which is the Japanese word for snail, and you might also know those, if you watch One Piece, the Denden Mushi telephones also have the same etymology. And then there is the little guy who is the new Kami, basically. He is the dragon. He is responsible for the Dragon Balls after Kami gets absorbed back into Piccolo. Boo, Bibbidi Bobbidi and Boo come from the song from the Disney movie Cinderella, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. Dabra, I can't remember actually where Dabra comes from. I know it has an origin, but I just can't remember it right now. So, I'm sure one of you will know. If anyone's watching this, I don't know who it is. Okay, that's enough about the characters' names. Let's talk about the UK dubs. Alright, so I have a huge problem with these, because one, the voice acting is really bad. Secondly, the voices they use are really unfitting. They gave Goku a deep, macho voice that does not fit his character at all. And third, they always insist on saying Son Goku every single time the character is referred to. They never just say Goku, it's always Son Goku, and they always say it in this really weird way. It's like Son Goku. They say it as if it was one word. In Japanese, it's Son Goku. it's split up, and they do often call it Goku in Japanese. It's usually only in a formal context when his actual full name Son Goku is said, and most of Saiyans call him Kakarot. Vegeta always calls him Kakarot. Oh, yeah, I forgot one more character. Broly, his name comes from broccoli. Broccoli, and you take up the code, that's Broly. So it's not from Broly, which is a UK slang term for an umbrella. Master Roshi, again, is an interesting case because his name is kind of a mistranslation. In Japanese, he's called Nuten Roshi, which literally translates to Old Master. Old is in the sense of old and wise, not old as in the sense of old, as in the sense of former. The English dub seemed to assume that Roshi was his name, as opposed to his title, and gave him the name of Master Roshi, which, when translated back from Japanese, comes out as Master. In the actual anime, his real name is never heard. He's either referred to as Kame Sennin, which means Turtle Hermit, or Muten Roshi, which means Master, or Old Master. So Turtle Hermit would probably be a good thing to call him, but Master Roshi is just a redundant mistranslation. Anyways, yes, English dub, but UK movie dubs. Voices are terrible, terminology is bad, dialogue is inserted in places where there is no dialogue in the Japanese version. Dialogue is wrong, attacks are called with the wrong names. Goku powers up to Super Saiyan by yelling Kamehameha in one scene. And this goes on and on and on. Oh, and they call Piccolo Big Green. Yeah, I don't have anything more to say about that. Let's move on. And I could, with regard to the androids, a lot of people who only watch the English dubs are confused about why Android 18 and Krillin could have a son, or daughter rather, in late Z/GT, if Android 18 is, well, an android. What they actually are is cyborgs. They are humans with mechanical implants rather than full-on artificial beings. The Japanese word that's used to describe them, Jinzo Ningen, translates literally as artificial human. This is changed into android in the English dub, and it should probably more be cyborg. That would have made more sense. They try to explain this away by saying that Krillin wished for her to become human, but the dragon explicitly says that he can't do that. In the anime, all he did was remove the bomb that was inside her. She already had human parts to begin with, including a womb, which was how she could get pregnant and give birth. What I'm more concerned about is how Vegeta and Bulma managed to have a kid. But we all know Vegeta has temper issues and is not the most romantic of people, so I wonder how that happened. Oh, I wonder how that happened with Goku, for that matter. Not 3 times. Seriously, maybe he's not as childish as we think. Let's not speculate about the sex lives of animated characters. Topics, what else can we talk about? I can't actually think of anything else, so unless something pops into my head in between the time of now and the time I end this video, I'm just going to say thank you for watching, if you did. Love and peace, and be sure to check my channel regularly, because I'll be uploading more Twilight thoughts on episodes. And yeah, send me some requests, because I would love to talk about the stuff you want me to talk about rather than the stuff I want to talk about. So until then, I haven't thought of anything, so love and peace. See you next time.